And I want to just kick off with sort of a view of where we are economically as a city and as a nation, um, and look to sort of where we're going. And then I'll pass on to Louisa Harrison Walker to talk a little bit about where we are with skills in the current economy. And then we will go to our speakers, and then we will have a panel discussion. If we listen to the daily news, it's doom and gloom. I think we can all admit that. And if we look sort of with a very narrow short-term view, we would say, well, we're in the middle of a recession. 2 quarters on the bounce, we're likely to have negative figures. But if we dig deeper and we actually listen to the Bank of England and we listen to the experts out there, people like KPMG, we are expected to have a V-shaped recovery. So we are expected to recover quickly from this current situation that we're in. Now, of course, there are some concerns, and it's going to require a key thing, which is confidence. But as I'm seeing it, and I deal with businesses across many, many sectors, and obviously liaise with many, many business people, because not only am I president of the chamber, I do have my own businesses as well. But I see the general feeling is business is picking up pretty well and pretty fast. I think there's an element of people are picking up where they left off in sort of February, March time before the pandemic kicked in. So they are delivering work they already had on the go. I think that's certainly the case with house builders. But I do think there's shoots of new work, there's new orders out there for a number of sectors. And people are wanting to really, let's get on, let's try and push through this. In terms of when will true confidence return, not jittery confidence to the boardroom, to the consumer, that we don't know. But I think all we can do is all of us push together, push ahead as a nation, and really try and get out of this. Because the signs are right, the government are providing phenomenal support economically. I think we all just want to see the back of the economic slump as soon as we can. We do not want another 2008. But I don't think we'll have another 2008 because this is so different, the situation we're in at the moment. So in terms of the government, what we know what they've done in terms of furlough and in terms of support. But obviously last night they announced some interesting support measures to stamp duty holiday, VAT cuts for the hospitality sector, and also in terms of assistance with skills, which we'll touch on a little bit more this morning. But I mean, if we look at the sector that's probably been hit the most, it's leisure and hospitality, probably followed by retail. And again, we've got to get behind these sectors. They employ a lot of people, and there's a lot of opportunity for the young in these sectors to grow and develop, because leisure and hospitality will always be around. As human beings, we like to socialise, we like to be with one another, and I think that's a sector we've really got to push forward with. I think retail's a different one, which has obviously experienced a slump, and retail is changing because of the internet. But as those old names disappear, I think we'll see new names. I think we'll see new innovations, and again, it's a great time for opportunity for all age groups and new skills, new ideas. So again, we've really got to think with an open mind as to how we can push forward and create new industries. As I said earlier, confidence. It's all about confidence, and we've got to do that so that we can allow businesses to grow, we can safeguard jobs, we can safeguard families, and we can create new jobs, new opportunities for the workforce across the age range. So as I mentioned, the Chancellor has announced a Kickstart scheme to create more jobs for the young, and they are doing all they can to try and assist with skills and employment. So at this point, I'd like to pass over to Louisa Harrison Walker, who's the Chamber's Interim Corporate Director. She's also has a recruitment business, so she's well in touch with business skills and the skills agenda across the region and nationally. So Louisa, if I could pass to you at this point, please.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see everyone. I'm just going to give you a little bit of context, just so you understand, I suppose, the view from my window and the vantage point that I have. Like Matt said, for the last sort of 15, 20 years, I've worked in the employment and skills market. I help employers find the talent and the skills they need, and then in turn that helps people find hopefully meaningful employment. I sit on the HEP board, which is the Higher Education Partnership. That's the 2 universities in Sheffield, and that's about helping encourage further education and higher education, particularly to groups in Sheffield that may not usually access further and higher education. So it's about widening participation, raising aspirations, and creating opportunities for people to continue to be upskilled. Currently, with also one of the other people on the call, with Mel Canarak, who's from Sheffield Digital, I sit on the Business Response Group, which is just come out of Sheffield City Council, and I'm chairing the City Growth Board, which is the private sector representation, private sector board that works alongside the council. So we're currently in the throes of writing an economic plan for Sheffield, and skills is one of the primary agendas in that plan. So we recognise how important skills and the skills landscape is. Tom, who's also on the call from the Chamber, found some minutes from some meeting of the Chamber from like 100 years ago, and skills was one of the challenges they were talking about then. So it's not a new issue, it's something that's been around for a long time. I personally was very frustrated that we would have an abundance of skills and experience in one area and a shortage of jobs in that area, an abundance of jobs in one area and a shortage of skills in one area. And to me, it didn't seem very joined up. Lots of employers and businesses in the region are looking to grow, but couldn't grow because they couldn't get the skills that they needed. A couple of years ago, I was commissioned by the Sheffield City Region Combined Authority to do a report into that, into hard to fill vacancies. Why do we have some vacancies that we can't fill and skills that we don't have in the region, and why do we have surpluses of the other? So that was a 6-month project. It was a 100-page report. There is an executive summary, which I'll share the link in the chat box, which is just a nice little 9-page overview. But there were many recommendations made out of that report. Probably the most relevant that we're discussing for today was about the need to continually develop employees. A lot of the focus and the discussion last night from Rishi Sunak is around the 16 to 24-year-olds, and that's a really important part of the skills landscape. And you know, the Sheffield College work a lot with young people and with apprentices, but we mustn't forget they do also work with employees and older learners. And I think I'm really interested to hear more about the way in which Sheffield College can help employers upskill existing employees, particularly for qualifications with accredited bodies like the AAT, the CIPD. I know that they're running courses in managing teams remotely and managing people online, because you know that's a new skill we're all having to learn. But I think the more that we can start to look at the skills landscape, less about tooling people up to have skills for now, and more about creating the mindsets of lifelong learners that will constantly be able to learn and adapt, then the more resilient we are going to be as a city and as an economy. And obviously Sheffield College has a huge part to play in that. I think I'm not going to take up too much time, actually. I know we've got questions and answers later, because I think the announcement that was made last night, I think the guys from the college and Bev from the Skills Funding Agency, I think some of those updates you'll be really keen to hear, and then we've got a Q&A where we can really get into some nitty gritty. So I'll hand over and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Okay, my internet froze then, so I assume you can hear me. Good, okay. We'll now pass to Bev Moxon, Education Skills Funding Agency, to talk about apprenticeship reforms and apprenticeship standards and support for the SMEs out there. So Bev, if I can welcome you in, and look forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Thanks, Matt. Morning, everybody. As Louisa said, I work for the Education and Skills Funding Agency. I'm in the apprenticeship division, and I'm just going to take some time to talk to you about apprenticeships. So my little slot is going to give you some background information, sort of basic information about apprenticeships, look at your responsibilities as an employer if you do take on an apprentice, and also the governance support that's available as well with apprenticeships. So I'm just hoping that my presentation is going to load up. There we go. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So about apprenticeships, it is a genuine job. Sometimes people think that it's a training course. It's not. So as an employer, it's about you having a vacancy, and you want to fill that vacancy with an apprentice. So you will go through a recruitment process, and your training provider can help you to do that. You have to train the apprentice for at least 12 months. So that's the criteria. There are apprenticeships that are a lot longer in length, so up to 4 or 5 years, but the minimum is actually 12 months. And it's about bringing valuable skills to you as an employer. And the one thing that you can do, which was introduced a couple of years ago, was it's not just about new recruits. So it's about upskilling your current workforce. So if you have somebody that's already employed by you, and what you'd like to do is put them into a new job role, and that needs accreditation and training, then you can use an apprenticeship to do that. Apprenticeships are at all different levels. So they start at level 2, which is the starter level, and they go up to level 7. Level 7 is a master's degree. So there's a breadth of training and development available under an apprenticeship. Next slide, please. So what is it that you need to do if you're going to take on an apprentice? Well, you need to pay them the apprenticeship national minimum wage, which at the moment is £4.15, but we do encourage employers to pay more than the national minimum wage. If that's appropriate, you can do so. You will have to put in place a training agreement and a commitment statement. So this is about being very clear what your responsibilities are as an employer. So you're setting that down in writing about how long the apprentices are going to be training for, what's the training that they're going to be doing, how is that going to be put into practice, and that agreement will be signed by yourself, the training provider, and the apprentice. So everybody is very clear about what's taking place and how that's going to happen. And the other thing is supporting the workplace. So if you do take on a new recruit, particularly if you take on a younger person, then they're not going to come to you work ready. So this is about you being able to give them that support that they will need in the workplace. Your training provider will also help with that, but just don't expect them to hit the ground running. You know, you are going to have to invest some time with that person to get them into the job role and being able to do the job that you want them to do. Next slide, please. So what support's available? As an employer, then you are not required to pay national insurance contribution for anybody under the age of 25, and that's around the higher tax rate. So any apprentice that you take on under the age of 25, you won't have to pay the national insurance contribution for them. There's also government support available if you take on a younger apprentice or an apprentice that falls into a 19 to 24-year-old that has a local education healthcare plan or has recently been in care. And that incentive there is £1,000 that you will receive as the employer to do that. And also the government will pay 95% of the cost of the apprenticeship training for any apprentice that you take on. So as an employer, you will have a 5% contribution, but there is a caveat to that. So if you are a very small employer and you take on a 16 to 18-year-old or a 19 to 24-year-old, as in what I've just described above, then it is 100% of the apprenticeship training that will be paid by the government. And yesterday was the Chancellor's announcement. So we knew there would be some incentive in there for apprenticeships. And what was announced yesterday is an extra incentive to take on apprentices. And again, it's divided into the age groups. So 16 to 24, there's an extra £2,000 available. And then anybody over the age of 25, then that's going to be 1,500. So we're just trying to work out how that is going to roll out. And I was just explaining, I'm actually going to have a little bit more of an insight into that today, but I'm sure the college will be able to help you through that process once we know what that's going to be and how it's going to be paid. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the actual apprenticeship qualification, because what's happening is that we've had in place a two-tier system. We've had apprenticeship frameworks in operation, and they've been in for a very long time. And then we've had what's called apprenticeship standards introduced. So they've been around for a couple of years now. And what's happening is at the end of this month that the apprenticeship frameworks will be switched off, and anybody coming onto an apprenticeship from the 1st of August will be coming in on a new apprenticeship standard. So you're probably thinking, well, what's the difference there? So with the apprenticeship frameworks, it's very much about the assessment of an individual, and at the end of their apprenticeship, they would have completed a number of assessments. There was no real, as there is with the standards, sort of looking at their competence at their end of the apprenticeship. So with the standards, it's all about understanding the key skills, knowledge and behaviours that's required to do the job role as that apprentice. So the standards themselves, they have introduced a way the apprentice will take an endpoint assessment. So that's really the difference. It's not an ongoing assessment as such. At the end, they will have to show that they are competent to be able to do that job role. And that can be done in different ways. It doesn't have to be an exam. It can be a practical. It could be where you are actually talking about your experience. There's lots of different ways, and that's actually set out in the apprenticeship standard assessment plan. So that's the difference there, and I'm sure the college will talk to you about the apprenticeship standards and what's involved with them. With that, I mean, there's over 700 different standards available, so there's lots of job roles that you can have a look at for your business, see if an apprenticeship is all right for you. Standards are developed by employers, so that again is the difference from the frameworks. As I said, they're measuring the knowledge, skills and behaviour of your apprentice. And they have that endpoint assessment where they will be able to show their competence. The one thing that when the standards were introduced, it was slightly challenging, should I say, for providers and also for employers, was about there has to be 20% of the training which is off the job. So that doesn't mean that they have to be totally away from the workplace. It could be that the apprentice is actually within the workplace, but they're doing their training. They may be with somebody else learning a different skill or developing their knowledge, or it could be that they are actually off-site and they're doing some formal training. So there's lots of different ways that the off-the-job training element can be delivered. And again, the college will be able to talk to you about how they do that. Next slide, please. So what about the funding system that we've got for apprenticeships? So we've got two systems operating again. We are eventually moving to one system. So I think most people know that we introduced the apprenticeship levy back in 2017. And that was only for employers with a pay bill of over 3 million. So roughly there's about 20,000 employers that pay the levy. For non-levy accounts, that is still paid through a provider contract. So that would be an agreement with you and your provider about the payments. As I've said, you would have to pay 5% of the cost of the training, or if you're a very small employer taking a young person on, then you don't have to pay a contribution. Where the change is coming in is that eventually, and it will be by the end of March next year, everybody will have to have an account on what we call our apprenticeship service. So this is an online account. This is what the levy payers have been using to access their funding, and that system will come into play for everybody at the end of March next year. Again, the college will be able to talk to you about the ways of accessing your funding. The apprenticeship service is not that scary. Your provider can help you set your account upon there. It also enables you to be able to do different things as well, so you can see exactly how the payments are being made. It has a facility where you can post vacancies on the system. It does a lot of different things. And if I'm a betting woman, I would imagine if you're claiming it, the incentive that was introduced yesterday, then it will probably be via this system as well. So it's just about getting used to that. And as I say, your training provider will be able to help you through setting your account up and making sure you can operate it. Next slide, please. Okay, I think that was it. I was going to go to questions, but the questions are going to be at the end. So thank you very much. And I think we're now going to go over to Andrew.
Yes, if we could bring Andrew Hartley in. Andrew's the Commercial Director of Sheffield College. So Andrew, please tell us how you guys can help us.
Thank you, Matt, and a good morning to everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm, as Matt said, the Commercial Director of the college and have overall responsibility for our apprenticeship provision and also our work with employers. So we've got a few slides that I wanted to take you through. So Sam, would you mind just loading those up, please? Great, fantastic. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Sheffield College offer around apprenticeships and what we've been doing and some of the partnerships that we've formed, and then at the end touch on some of the points from the Chancellor's economic stimulus package announcement yesterday, in particular the points around education and training, and I'm sure that will prompt some of the discussion in the Q&A afterwards. But if we talk a little bit about what the college offer is at the moment. So Sam, if we go to the next slide, yes. So over the last 3 years, we've invested significantly in our apprenticeship provision here at the college. It's a very important part of our activity. And so this year we'll see over 2,800 apprentices study with us. And we've become the largest apprenticeship training provider in the city and indeed the wider region. And as of the 1st of August, when the switch over to the new apprenticeship standards happens, we have 47 standards available for apprentices to enrol on. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So if we can move to the next slide. So the sectors that we cover a number of sectors very much aligned to the economy in the city and the wider region. The three big ones for us are engineering, construction, and the health sectors. And we're seeing a growing number of apprentices indeed in the digital sector as well. And so if we look at some of the standards on the next slide that we're able to offer, then these are not the complete portfolio that we can offer, but you can see it's a fair spread, ranging from technical apprenticeships in engineering and construction and health, through to business apprenticeships in leadership and management and HR, for example. And these apprenticeships are at level 2, the intermediate level, and they go right up to level 5, the higher apprenticeships, often incorporating an HNC or an HND diploma qualification within the standard. So if we go to the next slide, and Bev's already highlighted that switch that's taking place on the 1st of August, where the old apprenticeship frameworks will no longer be available for new apprentices to enrol on. It will all be apprenticeship standards, and perhaps worth just for those of you that are not so familiar with the new standards, just to talk about how they're structured. I think the most important point really is that they are designed by employers. They're not designed by training providers. These are employer-led programs, and the way they're constructed and the way that the standard is articulated in the 4-page document that sets out what the standard is that it really articulates the knowledge, skills and behaviours that an individual is required to perform a particular job role. So it's very much about the job role. And as you saw from the earlier slide, you will see that the apprenticeship standards are described very much like a job role. So you have HR consultant or you have bricklayer, whereas the previous frameworks did not have that close connection. Standards can include qualifications. Certainly at the higher levels, levels 3, 4, 5, they very often do include qualifications like diplomas, or in the HR consultant case at level 5, that includes the CIPD diploma qualification. At level 2, quite a lot of the standards don't include qualifications, so the standard itself really becomes, if you like, the qualification. And the diagram on the right just really shows you the structure of what a standard looks like. So you have the training elements, on the job training, off the job training delivered by ourselves, as Bev has mentioned, that's a minimum of 20% of the apprenticeship's time. It can take a number of forms, actual learning in a training environment. It could be coaching, it could be mentoring, it could be supplier training, equipment training as well. And we would allocate to each apprenticeship one of our training assessors or one of our work-based learning tutors to support the apprentice through their learning journey, through coaching, through mentoring, through one-to-ones, as well as the off-the-job training that they may take place in a training centre or in a classroom. And indeed, if the apprentice requires maths and English, then we would also provide that training. And at the end of the learning programme, then we arrive at a point that's called the gateway. And this is where we, together with you as the employer and the apprentice, sit down and review all of the learning that has been undertaken. And we make a decision as to, is that individual now ready to go forward to the independent endpoint assessment that Bev talked about. And if we're all in agreement, and we would definitely hope that we would be, then that individual goes forward to that endpoint assessment. And that endpoint assessment can include a number of activities ranging from things like an online multiple choice test, a professional discussion on the portfolio of evidence that the learner may have built up during the course of their learning program to evidence the skills that they've acquired, a practical demonstration, or indeed a showcase presentation of a particular project. It all very much depends on the specific standard that they are on. And at the end of that assessment, they either pass or fail, and if they pass, then they may get a merit or distinction. And that is then the completion of the apprenticeship. And we like these standards. We find them very flexible. They're very employer focused, and we find them flexible in the sense that they can be bespoke and tailored to meet employers' specific needs. So we've invested quite significantly in developing our standards over the last couple of years, and we think we have a good portfolio to offer. Sam, if we could move to the next slide. Thank you. And as Bev mentioned, just a reminder of that, what can be funded. It's not just new recruits into an organisation coming onto an apprenticeship programme. That they can also, apprenticeship standards are available for people within the workforce who want to upskill. So you may have somebody who you want to become a team leader, for example, and in which case they could go on a team leader programme. So you can use the apprenticeship programs as indeed your company workforce development program, or certainly part of it. And we're seeing many organizations do that. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So wrapped around the core apprenticeship program, we have some further services that are available, and we can help you with recruitment of apprentices. We can also set up and run a pre-apprenticeship program to prepare people to go on to an apprenticeship. We can provide additional training to supplement the core program if that's something that is a requirement that you want. For example, some compliance, health and safety courses might be considered appropriate. And, you know, outside of the apprenticeship offer, we also have a growing commercial training offer for standalone NVQs and individual qualifications, as well as one-day short courses and workshops on things like time management or project management. So we have a complete apprenticeship and skills offer now available to support employers. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. Just a couple of slides that I want to points that I want to just cover off about some of the partnerships that we have, which enabled us to extend our offer. So we have a very strong partnership with Sheffield Hallam University, which enables us to offer apprenticeships from level 2, intermediate level, right up in some cases to master's level. And so an example here would be what we're calling the Sheffield Leadership and Management Pathway, where a learner can undertake the team leader apprenticeship delivered by ourselves at level 3, and indeed then progress to the operations manager program at level 5. And then if they then wanted to go on to the chartered manager degree apprenticeship, then they could go to Sheffield Hallam to study that, and indeed potentially go on to the master's senior leader apprenticeship. So that's something that we are working on with Sheffield Hallam in terms of this progression pathway. Certainly in leadership and management we have it, and we're looking to bring it in to the market for construction and health and other sectors as well. And then the final slide before I touch on what the Chancellor talked about yesterday is that we're part of a group of 34 colleges. It's a membership organisation called Collab Group. And this enables us to offer a national service where required. So if you have branches outside of Sheffield and you have a training requirement in other parts of the country, then we can service that for you through the network of colleges. And we do that for a number of our employers. Okay, the final slide, Sam, is really just to sort of pick out some of the points that the Chancellor talked about yesterday in his economic stimulus package. There was a big focus on young people because of the concerns that they will be most impacted by the economic downturn. And I think everybody's very keen to ensure that employers can continue to invest in apprenticeships and young people to continue to bring talent into their businesses as they innovate and develop and grow over the years to come. And we don't get these situations that we've had in the past where apprenticeship recruitment dried up for a number of years, and then we had a real skills shortage as people retired and we have aging demographics. It's really important that we try and avoid that. So some of the incentives that the Chancellor announced, and you may have seen this in the news, is certainly around apprenticeships. There's an employer incentive of £2,000 for every apprentice taken on between the ages of 16 and 24, and then £1,500 for an older apprentice. For traineeships, now traineeships, these are much shorter programs, really a pre-apprenticeship program. So there's, and this is something we'll certainly be looking at. And again, the Chancellor's offering an employer incentive of £1,000 for work placement, because the traineeship is a short training program with a work placement, as I say, preparing people for apprenticeships in the main. There's the Kickstart scheme. So this really is a wage subsidy for young people to start out in a job. It's a wage subsidy for 6 months. So to keep young people engaged in the workplace. And then one of the final points was that some additional funding for colleges to train 18 and 19-year-olds who may have finished their formal education and training but are struggling to get into the jobs market. And so this enables us to provide further education and training to better equip them to enter the jobs market. So I think there's a really quite a good, we've welcomed this publicly, this package that's available to support young people, to enable them to get onto the careers of their choice, and to help employers support that. As you can see, it's very much a partnership here between employers and providers, supporting young people as we look to renew the economy. Okay, I think I'll leave it there and hand it back to you, Matt, to open up to discussions.
Thank you, Andrew. There's some really interesting stuff in there, and I think there's quite a lot to digest. So, I mean, what I'll do, I'll just sort of kick off as I see it, a key question, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So, as an employer, myself, in two different sectors. Then also there's the chamber as well. How do we engage with the Sheffield College? I mean, you're an engine for the city to provide skills for today and for the future. It's such a crucial point, and you have been for many, many years within the city. I've been to the college. I've looked around your amazing facilities, how employers engage and have their own branded even suites with you to bring the students on. I think that's probably based more around full-time students rather than apprentice-style students, but I may be wrong, and but as an employer, how do we really engage with you? There's 700 courses out there we've heard this morning, or 700 potential job roles. Now, I'm not sure Sheffield College serve all those, but and we've all got workforces of varying ages. We're wanting to bring new people in. Where do we start?
Well, thanks, Matt, for the opening question. So I think certainly over the last 3 years, we've invested a lot in our, if you like, building stronger partnerships with employers, and very much we see the college as anchored in the business community and the community at large. And so some good examples that I can share with you. So over the last 18 months, we've really been building the Employer Academy concept, where we can get employers involved in supporting our full-time learners to prepare them to go out into the job market. And so I think some people are on the call today. Employers have come forward to be associated with those academies. So the Chamber itself, if you like, sponsoring the Enterprise Academy, giving people the benefit of access to the over 900 members that the Chamber have. And so we've got people from the Chamber coming in to give guest lectures and to be able to mentor and support young people to get them a better understanding of the world of work. We have the Liberty Academy, women in engineering, very much very high profile. We also have a number of digital academies with WANDisco and Millgate. So these are examples of building strong relationships and partnerships with employers. So it's a joint endeavour to enable young people to understand the industries in Sheffield and prepare them to be able to go into jobs within those organisations. And part of that academy concept very much is about having work placements available to us. So we have a team of people headed up by my colleague Rachel Topless, and I know some of the team are on the call today who are out working with employers, building those relationships around academies. And then on the things like apprenticeships, we have a team of people who they'll sit down with individual employers and discuss and identify skills needs and come up with the right solutions. It's not about selling a product. It's very much about understanding individual business need and coming up with the right solution to help that business develop its people, to grow and to innovate. And that's what we're about. It's very much about a consultative approach, looking to understand the challenges in individual businesses. And so we have a team of people. So please, just contact us, and we can certainly send out all of the details. But as you see, we work with over 830 employers today. So very experienced in working with and understanding So there's a real opportunity, I think, further, particularly as we look to renew the economy, Matt, about building those partnerships, making them even stronger, and dovetailing into making sure that what employers need.
Thank you, Andrew. Bev, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think Andrew's succinctly described the way that they operate, and I think it is about, as Andrew's highlighted, not selling a product. It's working with employers to be able to meet their needs. It's all about what is right for that employer, and I think only by being honest with the employer can you develop that relationship.
Okay, thank you. I had a hand up from a gentleman who is coming under the idea of Sandra Bridge, but I don't think he is called Sandra. Were you wanted to say something?
Hi, Matt. Yeah. No, it's Mark Rose from CTL. Yeah. So you brought the question up about how do you approach the college and the product, selling the product, and it's not the product they're selling the service. They're selling the ability to fit the college into the workplace. So we was using as different suppliers for the training, and it really was it was almost like when we approached the other suppliers, it was almost like a laminated menu. This is what you get, bang, 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 and there wasn't any flexibility. It didn't really suit our workplace. So we introduced ourselves to Sheffield College. We've got communications going, meetings, all that sort of stuff, and it's absolutely perfect. I don't work for the college, obviously, sort of thing, but I can't fault the way that we communicated with college, the way that they listened to us, and then they moulded the courses or moulded the way we go in every month. I'm the training manager at the company. I go in every month. I go into the classrooms. I go into the workshops with the engineering section. I talk to the lecturers. I talk to the students. I talk to other students. It's very open door policy, and we're allowing the students to come to our engineering company, CTL. We're allowing them to come there. We're invested in machinery to train them there, to hopefully then to develop a talent pool then, so they get used to coming to CTL. They get used to coming here when they've finished the training. Boom, they already know 2 years have been coming here. They already know plenty of people there. They're feeling relaxed. They're more involved in the workplace environment. This is why we go into the workplace as well. They see a gaffer, a boss. They see, someone out of overalls, and we mirror what they do in college. When we take the apprentices into our classrooms, we try and reflect what college want to see. Going into a classroom, like no hats, hoodies, or overalls. So when they come into our classrooms, we have the same policy: no hats, hoodies, or overalls. And so it's a real collaboration. That's what I'm trying to get. It's a real partnership that we've developed, and I think that only happens if you've got to put a bit of legwork. I'm not saying you're not going to do this, but you've got to put a little bit of legwork in, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, and you're building it up. And I think we've been with college now for about 18 months, maybe 2 years, and it's pretty seamless. It's the tutors that come out, the assessors that come out. We've got a great relationship, got a good relationship with Andrew, and yeah. As far as I can say, it's pretty good. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, thank you. Can I just a question that Mel Kanarak put on the chat about how does the demand from learners for apprenticeships relate to the demand from employees to take on apprentices? And I think this has been a question over the years, probably as long as I've been in the working world, but it'd be interesting just to see what the answer is in the current climate. And I think, Louisa, I'd sort of like to bring you into this as well, because again, you see what demand employers want. So maybe we could start with Andrew and then move to Louisa.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because demand does change, and I think that's one of the things that we're very conscious of is working with employers, understanding their needs, and then really then helping to guide particularly younger people as to what the opportunities are. So it's about trying to expose to young people, what are the opportunities out in industry today, how jobs are changing, so that there are not these preconceptions. And and really just sort of, you know, broadening people's horizons, so they can see, you know, the range of opportunities. And then it's about preparing young people to go into those apprenticeship opportunities. We do get mismatches inevitably, and so we're sort of in the middle there, trying to act as a bit of a broker in a way. And we try and do that, and I think we're relatively successful. Clearly, at the moment, you know, things are very fluid, but I think what has been really, really positive is how employers have continued to support the apprentices that they have within their business, and really recognizing that, you know, actually, you know, businesses are looking for long-term sustainability. They need a pipeline of talent to flow through the business, and so are looking very much to retain and continue to invest in their apprenticeship provision, and indeed use, you know, the apprenticeship training programs to help upskill their existing staff. Particularly, I think, you know, going forward, you know, people will need to develop new skills, you know, as businesses adapt and change in the new environment, and you know, we accelerate into you know, green technologies and some of the for example, some of the low carbon investments that will need to be made.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Louisa, from the commercial aspect.
Yeah, just there's some tree surgery work going on outside my house, so if you can hear that, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge, isn't it? I think the Gatsby benchmarks that were introduced into schools have been really helpful in one regard, and we do have a CEIAG, so Careers, Enterprise, Information and Guidance Strategy in the region. Because what I was finding, I mean, my business benchmark would interview people that were looking for jobs and work, and people, you know, from 16 to 24, even in their 30s and 40s, still had no idea what they wanted to do or what they wanted to be. They just stumbled into things. And I think when I've gone and done talks at the UTCs and at the Enterprise Academy, it's quite surprising how unaware of the regional landscape people are. So, for example, the creative, digital and IT sector in Sheffield have been crying out for skilled staff for the last probably nearly 10 years now. But if you ask the kids, they'll want to be a games developer. And we have an abundance of games developers and not a lot of games developer jobs. So they don't always match, and that's very difficult. It's difficult to map that in real time. I think if we can encourage people to find something that they're passionate about, something that they enjoy, and teach them how to earn a living in that, and teach them to climb the ladder to start. I'll give you an example. I've had 3 apprentices in my business through Sheffield College in the last 15 years. All have gone on into permanent employment. Ellie started with me in a business admin apprenticeship. She's now gone on to become a digital marketeer. She went on to do a high level apprenticeship in digital marketing. She's done all sort of SEO, PPC, because that's where her interest started to go. So I supported her in that. I'd like to encourage employers to think about, as Sheffield is an ecosystem, the responsibility, sorry, that's my dog, the puppy, and the responsibility that we have as employers to invest in the future, to invest in people, to give them a positive experience of the workplace. And I think we've got to be really realistic in terms of what we expect of some of the young people. Sometimes part of my job is managing expectations of employers who actually want a 30k candidate but think they can get away with taking on an apprentice and trying to, you know, kind of shortcut really. So I think we've got to be realistic of what we can expect of people as they're coming in at that entry level, and we've got to be gracious in terms of the support that we give them. There's been various points that I've had to take my apprentices and sit them down and say, come on, you're better than this, you can do better than this. Because, you know, young people need that, and they've responded so positively to that. And as I say, all of them stayed for 3-4 years. One of them still with me now 6 years later. She's a really valuable member of staff. But I take on board the gentleman that's not called Sandra, the point he was saying about collaboration, about the employers that collaborate with the college will get the best results. So I think, you know, ultimately we've got to invest in the young people in the ecosystem, look at retraining and upskilling people that are employed by us, because we're entering a brave new world, and the skills that we're going to need it's going to change, and what will be the next pivot point and the next pivot point. So the more adaptable, more lifelong mindset we can have. I'm so sorry. Children, dogs, and tree surgery. Yeah, so I'll leave it there while all this noise is going on. Thank you.
That's the new world, Lou. That's working world of Zoom. That's what is now acceptable. So, can I pass? I think a question for Bev here, which is from Dale at the source. And what are the college's plans to look at the levy of funds to the supply chain within the region, unlocking unused funds to help fund apprentice costs for businesses?
Okay, hello,
So,
Dale.
I mean, so obviously Dale.
Do you want me to ask the question? Would it be easy for me to ask the question?
Yeah, because what you've typed, I can't quite fathom. So go, and as it's your area, obviously, the source.
What we've found to work recently is where you've got large levy-paying businesses that may have unused levy money. What they're doing is they're transferring those funds to smaller businesses to cover the cost of apprenticeships. So I wondered what the college's plans are, because they've talked about the CoLab group and collaboration. I think what we need to try and do is unlock some of these funds from larger levy-paying businesses to pass on to smaller businesses to cover the costs of apprenticeships across the region. And I just wondered what the college's plans were, or whether they're actually already doing that at the moment. That's the question that I've got. Bev, I don't know if you can maybe comment on that.
Dale, I can sort of give you a high-level view around that. So there are a number of combined authorities that are very interested in how they manage levy locally. So I think the most well-known one is the West Midlands, and what they've done is they've established a group and they're spending time with employers trying to find out what they're doing with their levy, and then they're looking for smaller employers that would want to receive that levy so they don't have to pay for them training. So they're facilitating that levy transfer, and I think that's what we need to be doing locally, and I know Sheffield City region are interested in that as well. So I would imagine that from that city region level, there will be groups that will be coming together and exploring how they can maximise levy transfer.
Okay, thanks for that, Bev. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. We've got a question from Gareth. Oh, sorry, I wanted a question from Dawn Martin. I think this is probably a quick answer for Andrew. About they are a new care home in Sheffield and looking to offer apprenticeships. Is this something that the college assist with? Is that an area you guys work in, care? Yeah,
absolutely, Dawn. So if we can pick up with you outside of the meeting, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Yeah. Okay.
Dawn, I would urge you to go and see Sheffield College if the doors are currently open because of COVID, but they're just so helpful. It's an amazing facility, and just look how they've engaged with other employers. Okay, I'm just trying to keep the questions because we've only got 4 minutes left. Another one, a quick one from Gareth Roberts about horticulture. Does the college offer apprenticeships in this sector? Andrew, probably another one.
Yeah. So we do offer some apprenticeships, albeit that's changing because of the move to the standards. So if the point is, if we're not able to offer a particular program, then we would absolutely look to refer that on to a provider that specialises in that area. So I'm very happy to work with other providers on this, and indeed, that's part of the solutions approach to an employer need.
Thanks for addressing this question. I think what we're more interested in is looking at developing, local provision, because the nearest provider, if you go on the national database, is a good sort of 25-30 miles away, and the ability to offer apprenticeships, could form a really useful part of our business development plan, as well as creating training opportunities and subsequently jobs, because there's a skill shortage in food production, horticulture. It's not amenity horticulture, not agriculture, not farm work, specifically fruit and veg production. there's a really big opportunity around non-soil based horticulture, really interesting technological developments as well. So I feel like this is could be a significant opportunity, but I appreciate it would take some time to develop. We're ready to work with the college, and we've highlighted this as an area of interest over a period of time, as have other similar food sector organisations in the city, but we've not really seen I think what could be seen as being a constructive response to that opportunity. So like today is a good opportunity just to raise that point again, really.
Yeah, fine, Gareth, and thank you. You've put your contact details on the chat, so if we can pick that up, from this, that'd be great.
Super, thanks, Andrew. Thank you.
I mean, that's fascinating, and I touched earlier about innovation, new industries. Wow, I mean, growing fruit and veg. Well, I assume hydroponically. Is that the way, Gareth? Yeah, I mean, that's one of the new industries we could see emerge. And it'd be really interesting to see how you guys engage with Sheffield College, and if something can come of that. Are there any other questions? Mark?
Yes, please. Yeah, right. So before I report back to my gaffer, the incentive payments, are they cash or are they channeled through funding? Are they put into our digital account? How do we get our hands on the cash?
At the moment, we haven't got the detail behind that.
Right.
But like I said, I think it might be through the digital account.
Yeah.
But as soon as I know, then we'll be talking to the college about how that's going to work. I mean, the £1,000 incentive comes via your training provider, but I think the new incentive might come directly to the employer.
Right. Thanks.
Okay, well, we're bang on time, so I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Bev. Thank you, Louisa. Thank you to Sam for arranging this, and Paul Edwards. I think it's been really interesting, really useful, and let's all get behind Sheffield College. Let's be confident, and let's try and push our city forward. So have a good day, everybody.